After the questions and comments section, we have the action points. After that, the rapporteur, Dafe Enuma, will speak and also close this town hall session. The NINA's contact information will be placed in the chats of the Zoom and the other YouTube places where we're at. So what you need right now is an attentive mind and an honest heart. I now hand over to Reverend Ben Awo.
Good evening, all. It's my pleasure welcoming you to this town hall meeting of NINAS interfacing with thought leaders of different segments of the Nigerian society. It is also a very timely meeting. Nigeria is at the crossroads. We've never had it bad. It is becoming clear and clearer and clearer that Nigeria is under state capture. And in the most recent times, the American judiciary has also borne testimony that the present government of Nigeria is illegitimate in spite of the capture, the seemingly capture of the executive arm, the INEC, the security apparatchiks, the legislative house, and even the judiciary arm. What is clear is that we need to take back our country from these political gladiators. Many are confused on how best to do this. But NINAS has never been confused for over 20 years on what to do. The action plan has been outlined and a number of successes achieved, including the constitutional force majeure of 2020. What we need now is to get a critical mass of Nigerians on the streets peacefully saying enough of the unitary fraudulent constitution of 1999, the source of all the problems we have in this country. So many are of the view that the real problem is leadership. I was part of the obedient movement, working hard to see that we find a good leader in Pomboy like P2B. But along the line, we have also come to realize that the structure called 1999 Constitution has made it apparently impossible to even get that good leader. What NINAS have said hitherto has well been corroborated by the recent happenings. As an ardent member of the obedient movement that fought strongly, rallying priests all around the Federation to amass support for P2B, we are disappointed to discover that the people who have captured Nigeria knew long before now what they wanted to do. And we are set to do it. And they have executed. But we thank God for the recent developments. Everybody knows now that Nigeria is under a state capture. But some people are still hoping on the judiciary. Some people are still hoping on the Supreme Court. They are free to hope on. But NINAS is calling everybody to shine your eyes. Look and see that everybody is under capture. The word is simple and straightforward. The word is transitioning. This is an opportune moment. We've never had it this easy or this clear. We've come to a point in Nigeria when up and gather efforts together to say with one voice that we won't want this situation to continue. It is a time that we need to unite and be able to solve the problem from the roots. Some people have hazarded different kinds of solutions. But if you look deeply at the NAS template, you will see that NAS solution is more ontological. NAS solution is more foundational. Every leader that we need to emerge in Nigeria will find it useful, the fight that NAS is making, including P2B. If we are able to tell the whole world at this opportune time that something happened in 1999, a fraudulent constitution that claimed that we, the people of Nigeria, agreed when it was just Decree 24 that was sold to us. And ever since then, with the 68 exclusive lists, we found it difficult to make any form of progress in this country, especially in insecurity, in economic growth, and all apparatchiks of development. It calls for a lot of deep reasoning, foreknowledge, foresight, for people to be able to understand what the NAS template is all about. We are not giving up, and that is why we are organizing this series of town hall meetings, because there is a need for a lot of alliances of different groups saying with one voice at this point in time that Nigerian constitution needs to be renegotiated. So I would like to drop it here, and we have a lot of other speakers who want to say something, but by way of introduction, I am coming up on behalf of the Catholic priests and religious leaders to say we are in on this, and we ask student leaders, political leaders of different interests, labor union, student leaders of different groups should begin to think of the Constitution of Nigeria as the root of our problems. Thank you. I yield the mic.
Thank you. Can the mods now take over and lead the main speaker through the 3 points that he will now be speaking on? Thank you. So if the mods can take over now, I yield the mic.
All right, thank you so much for that opening statement. Let me pull up the PowerPoint for today so that Brother Tony can come in. Brother Tony, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, everybody. And we're just here to continue from where we stopped, September 24, in the first of the series of the town hall. And it is to proceed to how what we had agreed upon will be advanced. And therefore, the meeting of today is, there's a difference between theory and practice. In theory, you're trying to set up the logic, the 2 and 2 that will have to give 4. But when you now have to operationalize, when it has to become something that people will do to yield an outcome that you already predetermined, it becomes a different ball game. People have gone to election and come back, and the whole country is upside down. The economy is on a free fall. It's like it's like the burning house of Lugard. Everybody's running in every direction possible. And God is a God of mercy and a God of second chance. That was why he derailed the election by which they were trying to save the constitution that hold us in bondage. And so we are where we were before February 25 as of today. And if we will listen to ourselves, just put aside all of whatever we were thinking before, if we would put aside everything and listen for what we need to do now, it should not take us more than 1 month from now, before the Supreme Court comes to whatever it's going to do, because the matter has already gone past where they can do anything at all. And so I go straight. I say, in the aftermath of, because of network, there could be times I will put off the video, so it becomes clearer. So in the aftermath of the inconclusive 2023 presidential election, as we count down to the invitation, to the initiation of the inevitable transitional arrangement for union reconstruction, the maiden edition of the NAS Town Hall series with leaders of thought and other stakeholders from across various sectors of the Nigerian society held September 24, 2023. The purpose of that town hall was to clearly establish what the problem with the dysfunctional Nigerian state is, and therefore what potential solution options are available to us. To summarize, I will read the resolutions of that town hall so that people can see what we came out with. Here are the resolutions. Number 1, resolution 1 from that last town hall. It says, it is now self-evident to all in Nigeria that the imposed unitary constitution of Nigeria 1999 is the source of the intractable problems of Nigeria, including killings, corruption, impunity, mass poverty, insecurity, infrastructural decay, bad leadership, serial electoral malfeasances, system dysfunction, hopelessness, state failure, with clear and present danger of catastrophic collapse. Not leadership, as many have been led to believe, especially the younger generation. NINAS posits that the unworkable unitary constitution of Nigeria is in fact responsible for the leadership outcomes that have bedeviled Nigeria for over 50 years. Resolution 2, in view of the fact that the constitutional arrangement of Nigeria is the main problem with Nigeria, it is self-evident that the urgent remediation required is for constitutional reconstruction rather than change of leadership. Resolution 3, that the mechanism for constitutional reconstruction is transitioning rather than elections, since elections will culminate in the reinforcement of the disputed constitution, while transitioning will yield new constitutional arrangements that could be a federation, a confederation, or the emergence of independent units of successor sovereign states from the defunct Federation of Nigeria. I will repeat this, that the mechanism for constitutional reconstruction is transitioning rather than elections, since elections will culminate in the reinforcement of the disputed constitution, while transitioning will yield new constitutional arrangements that could be a federation, a confederation, or the emergence of successor state entities, independent state entities. It's just a matter of degree of autonomy between the three. Resolution 4, that going by the resolutions 1, 2, and 3 above, the action required now is the immediate transitioning for union reconstruction and not mandate recovery. We are here today to advance the outcome. I'm now speaking about October 8th, this town hall of now. We are here today to advance the outcome of the September 24, 2023 town hall into actionable next steps. Accordingly, the purpose of this second town hall in the series is to zero in on the main, on two main items, namely the legal protection that the NAS Union Reconstruction proposition provides at this time above mandate recovery and IPOB style insurrection tactics. Number 2, that's the other thing that we'll also cover. The higher beneficial outcomes to the obedient movement and their principal, Peter Obi, as well as the seekers of freedom and self-determination, seekers of good governance and development in an environment of rule of law. In other words, all who seek genuine change from the unworkable and dysfunctional unitary Nigeria. So those are the two items. The first being legal protection. What is it that this NAS Union Reconstruction template offers that can protect those who are going to demand for this change in whatever way they choose to go about it? You know, what is it from the NAS template that will offer them the kind of protection, legal protection, for which reason nobody's going to kill them or molest them or begin to chase them around like people who, like madmen, you know. So having said that, there have been developments between the last meeting and today, and I will take a minute to update us in what has happened, because those things that have happened, you know, bear directly on the subject of our meeting today. So before we get into the two items I listed earlier, let me quickly update this town hall with an important development around the subject of our meeting today, which occurred after our last town hall. It has to do with the Chicago State University depositions in an Illinois court, which now establishes that the certificate submitted by candidate Bola Tinubu to INEC for the 2023 presidential election was a forgery, as it did not emanate from this Chicago State University. As some of us might have seen in the countdown to transitioning publication issued earlier today by the NAS Secretariat, October 8, 2023, detailing the implications for the matter before the Supreme Court, both for candidate Bola Tinubu and candidates Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar, from the perspective of the strategic objective of NAS, which is immediate transitioning for union reconstruction at a time the three candidates, Tinubu, Obi, and Atiku, are struggling to emerge president. The summary of what has happened is that as things stand now, and for different reasons, both constitutional and legal, none of the three can assume the presidency of Nigeria in consequence of the election, of the presidential election that held February 25, 2023. I repeat, the summary of the situation for where it is now is that none of these three can assume the executive presidency of Nigeria under the 1999 Constitution in consequence of the election of February 25, 2023. Let me break it down so that we can see where we are and where everybody else is. These three candidates are pursuing after their own objectives, and NAS is in the arena pursuing its own objective. what is their objective? Candidate Tinubu is doing all of what he can to retain the mandate that was smuggled to him. Candidate Atiku is doing all he can as one who has been listed as second to step into the shoes of candidate Tinubu if he's pushed out. Candidate P2P, who actually won the election, is hoping that by the time he gets to Supreme Court, with the one standing in front out of the way, of course, that he will then, they will reconcile the figures that the Court of Appeal refused to reconcile for him. And so he is hoping to step in as president. But that's where the good side stops. The reality, of course, is that for candidate Tinubu, he has two very heavy constitutional hurdles he's not going to be able to cross. Because if he attempts to cross it, all attempts to cross it, even if the Supreme Court decides to help him, will only result in the collapse of the 1999 Constitution. He does not have 25% of the votes as required by the Constitution to be declared winner. And there's nothing anybody can do about that. The attempt to now give new colorations and new meanings to how Federal Capital Territory is now one more state is hogwash, complete hogwash. If they insist on keeping that mandate, that is, if the Supreme Court will be reckless enough to join the Court of Appeal in trying to retain that mandate, that constitution will collapse on their head, and they will, even all the institutions anchored on that constitution, including that Supreme Court itself, will go down with that decision. That is that 25% deficiency. There's nothing that can save it for, that can waive it for candidate Bola Tinubu. And there's a second big problem, constitutional too. Section 135, subsection 1J of the 1999 Constitution places an express burden. It says that if a candidate presents a forged certificate to INEC, that will be ground for disqualification. Now, the certificate that Tinubu presented to INEC has been disowned as officially as it can be under oath in a court deposition by the Chicago State University registrar. You couldn't find any better witness to the fact that that certificate was not issued by that university. And the meaning of forgery is simply, presenting a document as emanating from where it did not emanate. In all my 31 years as a lawyer, there's no better definition for forgery than what we have seen, that the university can go to court and under oath say that this is not emanate from us. All the accidents of how it might have happened, because if you go back to the other parts of the transcript, that was the things that were brought to court, you will see that there was a reason that that certificate was not issued in 1979. The requirement for admission into the course included a credit pass in English language. That candidate did not have, the candidate Tinubu did not have that English language. And in course of his program, the university reminded him in writing, those are all parts of the transcript, reminded him in writing that there is a deficiency he has to make up, and there's a course called English 222 that he will have gone to write to make up for that deficiency. He did not. And so when he had gone through the balance of the course, because of that, missing English, no certificate was issued to him in 1979. That's what is contained in the deposition. So the question of going to make another copy in some kind of place that now has discrepancy, is a compoundment of the forgery itself, because no certificate was issued to him in 1979. And so it is forgery through and through. And so because the Constitution says that if a candidate submits a forged certificate, it will be ground for disqualification. There's nothing the Supreme Court can do for this fellow. The one of 25% catches up with him squarely. The one of forgery catches up with him squarely. And this has nothing to do with the qualification, whether he has school certificate, that if he has degree, therefore he has to school certificate. All those things are not the question. The question is simply, did candidate Bola Tinubu submit a forged certificate to INEC as part of his pre-qualification for running for the election? The answer is yes. Therefore, that provision catches up with him. So that knocks him out. Anybody who tries to save him from that is going to create a bigger problem. And that puts candidate Tinubu out of the way. For candidates P2B and Atiku, INEC's departure from the Electoral Act of 2022 completely renders untenable the outcome of that election of that day. What do I mean? Because I heard some of our colleagues, particularly Olisa Abakoba, was trying to say that the question of electronic transmission of results from polling unit to the server is something, they say the National Assembly had created a problem for us. We thought that they would transmit, and now INEC has discretion to do whatever they like, and they've done whatever they like. No, that's not the law. The law is that, yes, that Electoral Act had mandated INEC to conduct election and given INEC absolute discretion to determine the mode of collation, the mode of transmission, the mode of transfer of whatever. INEC was given absolute discretion to determine the mode. INEC subsequently exercised that discretion in issuing the guidelines. Follow the discussion. INEC exercised that absolute discretion in issuing the guidelines for the actual conduct of the election. And so in the guideline it issued, it indicated that the results from the polling unit will be compiled, filled into the form EC, whatever that they have to fill it into. So there's one sheet of paper in the polling booth in which the representatives of the parties who were there when the votes were counted will sign on that one piece of paper. The INEC representative will use the beavers machine to capture what is on that one paper. The people who are the party agents will also snap that one result. And from that moment of capture on beavers, it goes to server. And so there's no human interference whatsoever. We have 176 units of this polling units that should have been streaming in results from all over the country as the votes were being closed in each of the locations. But what did INEC do? On election day, after 1 hour of vote, INEC yanked off the server. So INEC departed from the guidelines. Now at law, and this is where some of us are going to stake everything we represent in law. At law, when an institution, a state institution, is mandated by statute, by law, to carry out a function or a mandate, if pursuant to that law, that institution issues regulations or guidelines in a manner that third parties that will be dealing with that institution will have to work with that guideline. The moment that guideline goes public, it becomes an integral part of that law, such that even that institution is not able to depart from it. What I'm explaining now was the basis of the Supreme Court decision in a delicate case, because INEC departed from what the law said in going to do what it did, and therefore the Supreme Court said that where there's a discrepancy between what INEC has declared and what the parties are claiming, that the court will fall back to what the law says. That's the electronic capture in the case of INEC and the election is conducting. It is that electronic capture, electronic transmission of results without human interference that will become the arbiter. And so whatever is contained in the beavers or server record that has that electronically captured result is what the court would rely on. And so the fact that INEC on election day chose to depart from the guidelines renders the exercise of all of what they did on that 25th had been done outside the law, and actually knocks off the bottom of the outcome, so that none of the three, whether it's Tinubu already fell over the bar, or Atiku, quite apart from the fact that Atiku does not have 25% in Abuja. That's also a constitutional impediment for him. But even the P2B that won the election, that has the spread, that has the highest number of votes, if things are reconciled, that fact that INEC departed from what was stipulated is going to be basis for the entire exercise being truncated. It's not as if it cannot be reconciled, but from what we know, they are left with only P2B as the one who can be president from the outcome of February 25th. If the figures are reconciled, even that sin of INEC, even that departure from what should happen of INEC, it has a remedy, but that remedy is in the discretion of the same Supreme Court or the court. What is that remedy? They could go to that evidence that the Court of Appeal refused to look at, and in terms of what exactly came to the server later, the Court of Appeal pretended nothing came, and they just worked with what INEC was claiming happened. And so, since that it has become discretionary to them, we are reporting that they are going to rely on that departure of INEC to make sure that their candidate there below. But is that the end of the whole story? No. There is a window. Only the NINA's transitioning template offers a window to some of the candidates, particularly the one that has no deficiency, of course, subject to certain conditions. It is that transitioning, because in the transitioning we're proposing, like South Africa did with apartheid in South Africa, there will still be nominal governance, and there will be, the union reconstruction meeting, like CODESA, and so if within the context of the, what is it called? Within the context of the transition, whoever is adjudged to have won the election can be part of the team. And if we are not, if the Supreme Court will step into its policy jurisdiction to arrest the ship of a state that is drifting into transition, then it leaves the window open for the one who is not disqualified by constitution, who is not disqualified by law, and who is not disqualified by the number of votes and the spread, to be a part of whatever will be that nominal governance. That's the window of opportunity open to those who contested that election. But the reason I went into this detail is that NINAS is also in that arena where these three candidates are trying to be president. NINAS is in that arena to help take Nigeria to the transition that it must now get into, except it wants to, just set the union aflame or ablaze. And so while they are looking for how to become president, each of them, NINAS is looking for how, for the same reason we said that the journey to election should be shut down. It is for that same reason that we are saying today that we must proceed in the midst of the inconclusive election to the transition that will enable us deal with this matter. So that's what I wanted to report from the question of what had happened between the last meeting and now, because it goes to the heart of whatever we plan to do now. We have to work with information. We have to work with knowledge instead of speculations. And so I go into those two items earlier listed. One, the legal protection offered by the NINAS union reconstruction template as against the mandate recovery and the insurrection tactics. What does this mean? The NINAS union reconstruction template is one in which we are all saying now that the constitution is the main problem, is the fountain from which all the other problems flow. And because we have identified that main cause of a problem, we are saying that instead of going to pursue mandate that is 100% in the hands of the people who swallowed the mandate in the first place, and who can criminalize those who are coming to demand the recovery. It is an option, it's an alternative for those same people to now elevate what they are trying to do, what remedy they seek, to the constitution that has to be reworked. Because that constitution is the reason for what happened with the election, centralized control of electoral machinery imposed by that constitution in its exclusiveness. That's why election went back. That constitution is reason for the corruption that has overtaken the land, because it creates massive avenues for corruption and impunity, and comprehensively protects the beneficiaries of corruption by handing over the spare key to the treasury, to the executive heads of the heads of the executive branch, the president and the governors. That same constitution is reason infrastructure is in decay. That same constitution is reason the killings and insecurity is happening on the scale, is happening everywhere in the country. And when we go to the 10-point interrogatory in which NAS was pointing at the things that will not change, no matter who becomes president, you begin to see the refineries that the petroleum subsidy that they're talking about, the refineries that are not working. It is that same constitution that locks down refining capacity such that people who can refine are no longer able to refine. Is that same constitution that take away electricity that could have been available if everybody is allowed to, generate and transmit, as it should be in a federation. Not the one that these amendments, in case anybody is thinking that there has been an amendment. No, that amendment still leaves the states at the mercy of the federal government. Because if I want gas, for instance, to power my turbine, gas is still in the exclusive list. They will say, oh, well, this amendment allows you to generate. That's what some of the semi-literate, commentators are trying to throw at all of us. So all those things, corruption, impunity, infrastructural decay, insecurity, those things that choke you every day, coming from that constitution, and the serial electoral hist. Why is it that the election is always upside down in Nigeria? All those things coming from that constitution. Therefore, instead of going to pursue the narrow objective of who can go and be president, but that person will still have to swear to defend and uphold and govern by that constitution, whether it is P2B or Atiku or Tinubu. It is that constitution. The 36 states that impose a huge cost of governance on all of us, so that there's no money left at all. The poverty you see in Nigeria is because all the money Nigeria earns is no longer enough to pay for the bureaucracy that is imposed by that constitution. 812 governments. We had only 4 regional governments and 1 federal government before the federal arrangements were truncated. Those 4 regional governments provided more governance. They built more hospitals, they built more schools, they built more housing. They took care of the citizens because it was a trim government. It was in that period. And what has changed? The reason Nigeria has no money, that nothing that can get to the citizens, is that all the economic assets have been confiscated by this omnipotent and almighty federal government. That is an imposition. It's not even the decision of the owners of the sovereignties confiscated into Nigeria to have what we now have, 36 states. And then local governments should not have been the business of the constitution at all. It was the people who were carving out those states and the local government who wanted, those things were carved out for the purpose of taking the maximum they can get from the confiscated economic assets of the federating units. And so they sit in Abuja and share 704 local government areas you have to finance every month. Executive chairman and the councillors, all of them in their convoy, governor, that is, 20, 30 commissioners, 20, 30 House of Assembly members in each of the 36 states. Then you come to the federal government, you see the number. And so there's really nothing at all left to go to the citizens. In fact, so bad is it that they are borrowing into the future to be able to finance those. So these are the reasons we now have to tell the people who are seeking for change we said to them, can we define the change we seek? The reason, for instance, the ones who went for in support of P2B, the reason they went to look for P2B to come and become president is that they believe that P2B will end corruption if he becomes president. But the constitution makes it impossible for him to end corruption. He will only be president. The governors will not be accountable to him because the constitution renders them unaccountable to anybody, including to him. They have immunity like he has immunity. They have absolute control of the treasury of the state like he has. And so there's nothing he's going to be do about corruption as long as that constitution is standing. There's nothing he's going to do about bad leadership because across board, it is this same centralized control of INEC that will enable them choose whoever they want as a president, as senator, as governor, as a state assembly member. Everything will be outside his control. Any change he wants, he has to go to that National Assembly to find it. What will be his answer to cost of governance? 36 states that will have to be financed in full. 74 governments that have to be financed. 48, 40, whatever, the number of ministers, they say at least one from each state. The constitution already stipulates what will happen. What is he going to do about it? And so all those things we thought that P2B will come in and do, he's not going to be able to do it because the constitution makes them impossible. It is that's even the best of them. We can now see that if it turns out to be Tinubu, he has that constitution to confiscate the entire content of the treasury. He has that constitution to exercise the power of life and death over whoever that doesn't agree with him. And so why do we take the risk of wanting to renew the life of that constitution by allowing anybody to come and swear to defend and uphold it, even if he has a name similar to our own? The Yoruba people that thought that some of them that are rejoicing that one of their own will now become president, has become president. Again, do they have any Yoruba card to go to buy fuel in filling station different from the one you and I use? Do they have any Yoruba card to get a naira, the dollar at the rate, better than what we have to pay, 1,000 naira and above to get $1? And so it is in that light that the question of the legal protection that will come from what we are doing is that the moment we raise, let us pay attention, the moment we raise that issue of constitution is our problem because it will solve all the other problems. It doesn't exclude our own people, it doesn't exclude the person of our choice. It doesn't exclude the person of our choice from being a part of the transition arrangement. That's the only window to government house for any one of them at this point. Otherwise, it will be whatever else will overtake everybody, will overtake everybody. Nobody's going to be allowed to govern with this constitution that we have rejected. And so we say that the question of criminalizing those who are good, because once the Supreme Court makes its decision on this subject matter, anybody who comes to say, oh, we don't agree, they're going to criminalize that person and call it insurrection. They will say, oh, you lost the election and you now want to come and topple the government. That was why Soyinka was talking the way he talked, that P2B lost the election and he knows he lost the election. They have also been trying to put IPOB's activity on the neck of P2B. And so that's the benefit of what the NAS template offers. It offers protection to those who are now going to insist that things must change. Their task is limited to pushing Nigeria to the transition to go and rework the constitutional arrangement. Both themselves and their candidate. Their candidate can be criminalized because they will say he's the one organizing them. And you saw what happened to Abiola. He eventually got into custody. He lost the mandate. He lost his freedom. He lost his life. The matter is heading straight to that kind of trajectory again, except our people will listen. So it is against the backdrop of the foregoing that we're inviting you all on behalf of NAS to come forward to join the urgent task of taking down the 1999 constitution by taking Nigeria into transition as intended by the NAS Domino 2 design. You saw the Domino 2 design, please call it up again, in which NAS targeted the election as a strategy for taking down the constitution and ending the union anchored on that constitution. That will compel everybody to go into the transition. Otherwise, union dissolution. If we're not going into transition now, unilateral actions for everybody to take back their portion of the country is where we are. And nobody's going to be able to accuse anybody of wrongdoing because The constitution that empowered them to accuse, the constitution that empowered them to shoot at people is what is gone now. And which Nigeria would they be talking about? Yoruba land will be in the hand of Yoruba people. Ijaw land will be in the hand of Ijaw people. And all of us will be discussing. Nobody can come in the name of government of Nigeria or military of Nigeria or any institution of Nigeria if they do not come in this period into the right. Sorry, let me just in a minute land where I can say, you know, it is in inviting. We're inviting all of those who now want to insist on that change into the task of, you know, shutting down what has happened, so that it doesn't, because so that life will not be restored to that constitution that that constitution that we have already defeated, because this will precipitate the constitutional logjam that will necessitate the transitioning for union reconfiguration, union renegotiation, reconfiguration, and reconstruction. That task of taking us into, of taking down that constitution and taking us into this reconstruction will take the form of elevating our demand from the mandate recovery that many erroneously thought was the way of redemption to constitutional reconstruction that actually offers us a chance to get the change we seek. The practical mechanism for stepping into that all-important task are outlined in the clarification notes that accompanied the NINA's. You remember the NINA's invitation to victims of September 6, in which we set out the logic that will frame the constitutional reconstruction as a thrust of our demand. If there's only one thing to take away from this meeting, it is to say that NINAS has placed on the table something that can take us to where that demand for constitutional reconstruction takes the center stage in whatever pushback we wish to make. And I would think that if we have all of this in our thoughts, we already, what you see here, this domino 2 you see, is where the three blocks in the alliance we are leading, the Lower Niger, the Southwest, and the Middle Belt, you know, together, truncating the journey to election as our strategy for taking down the constitution that is the next pillar, and the union of life and death anchored on that constitution. We have already initiated the push. The only thing we're inviting you to do now, which you can do if you can spread this message and say it by yourself, because self-determination is a people's right. It's not something 3 people or 10 people are going to bring home to you. It's you that will hold on to yourself, hold on to your sovereignty, and insist. The international community is waiting for us to say that we can proceed under this constitution. The UN has done its part by sending Agnes Calama, the 20 rapporteur, in 2019. We are the only ones now creating the impression we are happy under this constitution by going to election under it. We have told us that those who swear to the vote, those who are willing, those who are doing political party, those who are willing to swear to govern by that constitution and defend it against the rest of us, are the ones who are putting us through the torment. If we go to join them by refusing to topple the election, thank goodness they didn't succeed in the one they did. We should not allow them to initiate another one. We should not allow them to continue on the basis of the one that has gone back. And so that's where we want to land my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tony Nadi. So the ball is on our court. The people, this is exactly what democracy is all about. When power goes back to the people, power belongs to the people. And what Ninas is telling us is that the ball is now on our court. We just need to push through. You can see the domino diagram. The logjam of the election hitting on the constitution, the 1999 constitution, and that hitting on the nation that has been tormenting us, the nation of death. So the ball is on our court, and I'll bring in our sister Weke to moderate as we move on. Thank you very much, everyone. Please continue to share this meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Ekwe. We have heard it, and nobody can say that he has not heard that Nigeria is not working. And Nigeria, the unitary Nigeria, anchored on the 1999 military imposed constitution. Will tell me, if when Nigeria happens to you, what will you do as it is doing today? Every place is under fire, internationally, nationally, locally, even in the villages. So, my dear friends and compatriots, those who wish, who are seeking the change we deserve in that criminal enterprise, the British scam called Nigeria, because every person is just loading this country. The country that has not even given you anything.
Yes, I think we may, because of time's sake, I think we may have to do the comments and questions. It should be coming up now. Thank you.
Wait a moment. So we have touched on different topics this evening, and there is a legal protection that NINA strategy provides for mandate recovery and IPOB's insurrection tactics. I think we have covered a little on that. And for those who are looking for actions and who are saying that they need to go on the streets to protest, there are a lot of things required to be done. We are all looking for that freedom. Self-determination is inalienable right to every person. So NINAS has provided you with legal protection. This constitution has already gone to court, and the court has not even given any kind of answer because it would be against them. So you are taking back your power, because power belongs to you as a person, as a people. So, like the housekeeper has said that we will take comments and questions. I think we give some minutes for people who are in the audience and those who have been listening to throw in their questions so that we will tackle it as we move ahead. Thank you. If you have any question, you can raise it or put it on the chat, and we are ready to answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sister Mbweke. So we do have a comment, or actually, so I have a comment or question by Tajudeen, Tajudeen. So Tajudeen, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Tajudeen, unmute yourself and ask your question, please. You have only 30 seconds. If not, okay.
That's okay. So there's
okay. Am I on now?
Yes,
okay.
yes,
yes.
Go ahead, Alco.
Okay, thank you very much. I've followed all the three analyses done by our spokesperson. The question now is, all these things we have said here, that he presented the analysis of each of the candidates, is it impossible for this thing to be forwarded to the support website so that they could hear and then adjust to the reality of the truth? If that answer is available, fine. But if not, I want to say that Tinubu has incubated criminality right from 27 years back, and the person has now had.
Okay, so the brother is frozen, and this is why we need you to just ask your question and just don't make, a general statement. Just go straight to the question so you can get an answer and you can move on to the next person. So is there any other questions, concern, comments, any other one? Because I don't see any, well, okay, I have two people. So let me invite those two people.
Before we go to them, what was his question? Did he say, is there no way to transmit what we have to who? Did anybody hear him?
I didn't get his question
Yes,
myself.
that's what he said. He said, and I know we have done that. I know NAS has done that. He says, there are no way to transmit this thing that you broke down to the Supreme Court so that they will take necessary action and be guided, which I know that NAS has already done. Yeah,
we've done. That's why we made the broadcast retitled Nina's memo to the Supreme Court in our capacity as friends of the court, our amicus curiae. So the Supreme Court has all of what they need to hear from us. The other things we also offered to come to explain it to them in private in case they didn't understand any part. We've done that part. Next question, please.
Yeah, that's Ikenna Okafor. Please go ahead.
So
Ikenna, go ahead.
Sorry, before Ikenna, I think
Good evening. My name is Ikenna Okafor. So my question, I will go straight to the to my question. Having listened to Mr. Tony Nadi, explaining all the necessary steps that could be taken, I understand. First is no election, bring down the constitution and renegotiate the union. And now we know that some states are planning elections, like in Imo State. Governor Hope Uzodimma is already, warming up for an election. How do you advise, people, especially the stakeholders in Imo State, what can they do to ensure that that it doesn't, the election in Imo State doesn't take place? Because if we're able to succeed in stopping the election in Imo State, then we can say that that's a success. I mean, that's a milestone that one can count on, and we have a template in for how people will engage in this campaign. That's my question.
Okay, thank you.
Straight answer. Straight answer. The NINAS, if you had read the constitutional force majeure, NINAS had always stated it very clearly that it is the general election that we're concerned with. And that is because if we were to say, oh, state, this was exactly what IPOB was thinking they could do when in 2017, as we were targeting the election of 2019, the general election of 2019, they jumped ahead of us to try to take credit for stopping election in one small location. The Constitution requires this 25% in 24 states. It means that except you have 24 states that participate in elections, the election will not have an outcome. Nigeria has 36 states. And so if by any means they have 24 states in which elections can take place and it takes place in Abuja, they can make a return and somebody will become president on account of that return. Where does that leave you? If you go to stop election in one location and they leave you and your one location, you can even leave the 5 southeastern states. If you say nobody will come out of their house, they still have 31 states. They will go ahead and conduct the election, and there's no minimum threshold of participation to validate. It's just any number that comes out, you begin to look for percentages in that number. So it is not Imo State. We are talking to the whole country. If there are no persons in Imo State that have seen the merit of what we are saying, to join in making sure, because the day what we are doing receives enough of people inside, even now, if that constitution collapses today, that election will not happen. If our people are looking for how to go and get one governorship or one senatorial seat or even presidency in some corner, in some way, you can't save everybody. What we are doing is capable of saving a majority. There are people who have been killed between that time of election and now. There are others who will be killed if after the Supreme Court pronounces they are still doing the wrong things. But if they come out in the time we ask them to come out, and they form a critical mass that collapse what they are doing, because right now the election they did is inconclusive. So anybody who is saying stop election, because some of our people were carrying on as if, well, if we don't come and support them, they will fail and will continue with what we're doing. Everybody will pay the price for their decision. We had 3 years to stop this journey. What did our people do in those 3 years? They were hedging their bet, hoping to jump in through the chimney into the dining room. It hasn't worked. It will not work in any of the other places. If we finish this task in the good time, there will be no further elections anywhere under this constitution. If we continue to drag feet, I think we'll just go with it. NINAS will not slow down. Whatever happens to anybody in the small corner where they are, because they refuse. If they had come forward, we won't be discussing Hope Uzodinma. Next question, please.
Thank you, Brother Tony. So,
excuse me, what I mentioned Hope Uzodinma as an example. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying we are going for Imo State. What I want to know is, now that the general election is over, you know, what is expected of those who now support this NINAS agenda? What are we going to do in order to effect this collapse of the constitution of 1999 constitution?
First is to insist that this constitution, the international community must hear it the same way they were hearing obedient movement all over the world. The international community must hear it from people who are dying under that constitution. That's what they asked us to do. The people who are in a position to help us in high places across the world, they say you have to escalate this demand to crisis level. It's actually a US senator that said that to us in a team of others, amongst several others. He said, you've done everything is set. You escalate this rejection of this constitution to crisis level. It was the US that took the matter to the UN Security Council to say the Nigeria that we are worried about is going to burst in our face if we don't do something. The UN then sent the rapporteur mission that reported that Nigeria's constitution is like pressure cooker for injustice. For
I
all
think
the killings.
Action point time, all these things will be wrapped up.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
You did not answer his question.
And his question has been answered.
No,
Does any other person
no.
have the question?
No, the answer will come further from the actions. Join in declaring, join in spreading this message. There must be a critical. We're 180 million people in danger right now. If we have 10% of that number speaking up, even 5%, nobody will be able to sleep in Nigeria, because that will immediately mean 18 million or 9 million people. Where's everybody? Nobody wants to do anything. They're just sitting in their homes, hoping that we'll go and behead the monster that is tormenting them. Whereas the task of what they need to do, take this message, spread it. There's a website that has there's a NINAS website that has all the information. Connect this. The only task left now is to connect this information with the populace that seeks that redemption. A small number of people, even 5%, even 1% of 180 million is already 1.8 million. If 1.8 million will take on this task of taking the information of what we have to do, what the problem is, and what we need to do about it, let it become the sing song. Let it become something that many more people are aware of. And because we can't be everywhere, we are doing what we can. The national, the regular media, the government is breathing down on them not to take what we're doing. The ones who are on the internet are not prepared to touch it because they are looking for who will pay them. And the people who are living in that danger are not interested. They're just looking for where the benefit will come from now. And so the task is, can you join in taking, there's website, there's a YouTube channel, there's even a NINAS Facebook page. Go there. We have more than 230, it's going to 250 broadcasts now. If you take 10 of it and spread, town halls, it could be virtual. Let everybody who is in this danger get to know. There's no other solution to this problem. And if they don't get to know, and they're busy chasing, the politicians know that you don't know. And so they'll continue to drag you around. The caliphate, the Fulani that is coming to take your land, they know that you don't know. And so they hold on to that constitution, call it democracy. And in ignorance, you follow them around. So the task to do is to join in spreading this message and speaking up from where you are so that it becomes the dominant discussion. We don't want this constitution as basis of union anymore. We insist on transition now to go to rework the constitutional basis of the union.
Thank you.
More will come from the action points.
Thank you. So mass campaign is the next step, and it's not the first time it's been done in the war. 2020, Chile did that and brought down their military constitution. 1990, South Africa brought down the apartheid constitution. So this is not the first time. We have reached where we escalated as a people, and then there will be mass campaign from every angle. The way people did obedience and did answers, it's just that they were having a wrong topic. What is ailing us as a people is the fraudulent 1999 constitutional order, and it needs to go down so that we can be free. That's the campaign. That's as simple and straightforward as anybody can think about it. Thank you very much. So we'll bring in our brother, Akko Christian, for his own question. Please come in, unmute yourself, Akko Christian, if you're still available, and ask your question or make the comments. Otherwise, we'll move. Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate your presence here this night. Please continue to share, like, and subscribe on Nina's YouTube channels and the website. Information is power. If you get informed, you will know what your power is and how to exercise it. Because self-determination is the people's right. It is your right, but it has to be exercised in a correct and accurate way so that you get the results you want. In other words, we have a goal, and then we have a vehicle, and we have a roadmap, and we need to follow it. Thank you. Is he here? I'll yield for Mbeke. Please go ahead, Mbeke.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't think Akko Christian is still here, but if he's here, you can indicate and ask your question. Does any person have a question?
Yeah, I'm available.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead. Unmute yourself and go ahead with your question.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I want to make an inquiry regarding NINAS. I've been sometime in the past seen a notification for Zoom meeting, but I don't really know what it's all about. So I would like to get information through the website. If you can drop the website address so that I will get to register. Thank you.
Oh, I can answer that. I already put the website address. I put the Facebook address in the chat box. I put the website. I put the WhatsApp group and the YouTube channel. They're all there in the chat box. Thank you very much.
Are you okay? Any other question?
Yes, I'm fine about it.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? In the absence of further question, let us go briefly to number 3, the protective and beneficial outcomes to obedient movement and their principle, P2B. But please be mindful that NINAS is a unique and organic movement of the owners of the land. So we shall bring in the NINAS spokesperson for about 10 minutes or less than that to give us the protective and beneficial outcomes to the obedient movement and to their principle, especially at this point in time that the center is no more holding in that country called Nigeria. Please have the mic, Mr. Tony Nnadi, the NINAS spokesperson. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I had taken it together with, but I can zoom in on it again. When I was talking about the legal protection and the beneficial, the higher benefits, that was the way I had to put it. Because the question of going to get mandate can only take you to government house, can only provide you with change of leadership. But this constitution, that the reason everybody was failing, we fail again, remain in place. And so you go back to where you got started. Those higher benefits is that this is the source, this is the tap from which corruption is flowing, from which killings are flowing, from which poverty is flowing. The higher benefit is that it will extinguish that source if that constitution goes down. The other benefit is that those who could have been criminalized by the people standing on that constitution will not be criminalized, because NINAS is the one accusing them of treason. NINAS is the one accusing the government and all of the political party, all of those who are running and ruining Nigeria with that constitution as basis of union and as an instrument of governance. NINAS is the one accusing them of treason. And we went to court over it to say, you cannot put our signature on a document that we knew nothing about as basis of holding onto our sovereignty, our lands, our economic assets, and our rights to work those assets. It is a forgery to the extent that we did not make it. You never called us to any meeting. You just made a document and put our names on it as the ones who did it. And therefore, it is a forgery. Whatever be the consequences of the document from Chicago should be the consequence on that constitution that is a forgery. And so, as long as we are the ones standing in the right, they are not going to be able to do anything about it. If they are not going to be able to say that you are committing an offense, if the reason you're on the street is to say this constitution is a fraud against me, you put my signature on a document I knew nothing about, and you are standing on it to now accuse me of any type of wrongdoing. That's what turns the table. And if only our people will determine that it is not, that's why we read those resolutions at the beginning. If our people will come to the realization that it is not by putting one of their own in government house that will retrieve their sovereignty for them. In fact, that person that belongs to you is going to swear to defend and uphold the constitution that enslave you, that impoverish you, that provide visa access to the people that come to kill you. That's what that person that is from your part, that bears your kind of name, but who is prepared to go to swear to defend and uphold that constitution, is going to do if he gets to government house. And so it is in we determining, making up our mind that it is to recover our sovereignty that is more important than to go to get power. It is our freedom from this bondage imposed on us by this constitution that will bring us to the changes that are genuine, the changes that will take us away from where we are now. If another person comes, no matter who, to be president of Nigeria under this constitution, things will continue to get only worse until they snap. The ones that have run overseas, look at what is happening to them. They are now going to have to be, some of them are packing to live in the places where, because there's the Nigeria that is now becoming Somalia is going to become their status where they are. And so that protection and beneficial, and beneficial outcome is that if you elevate your demand to constitution must go, transition now, the system will be running away from you. They are not even going to be able to accuse you of any wrong. How much more coming to attack you? Because any issue they raise against you, any attempt to attack you, that constitution will go down before they get to you. Because the whole world is waiting for that issue to be problematized, to be that issue to be escalated to crisis. Oh, that Nigerians are on the street on account of that constitution that is tormenting them. Then who are the people that are going to come from government house to say, oh, no, you're committing an offense? They are the ones, they will be on their knees. If NSAS people had listened to us when we told them what to do, at that time they were on the street. They only needed to say the constitution of Nigeria is the problem that needs to be solved. If they had said that, they will not need to be on the street for more than 48 hours before the government will commit to what has to be done. Those 5 points of proposition, those 5 points of demand that became proposition in the constitutional force majeure, even now that the election of 2023 has gone back, presidential election, if we insist that that is what we want to see, however we manage to do it, enough numbers of people saying, we are not going to listen to, we are not going to take anything anymore from anybody. Let this announcement be made that we go to transition, that this constitution is the problem, that it has to be taken aside, that we cannot proceed to any election, including the one that has happened now. We are in a position to reject the outcome. The outcome is already bad by itself. That's why I explained that part. So God has already done that bit for us, that we planned to derail the election, and the election is derailed. Can they take us to another election? If we are stupid enough to wait for them to take us to another election, then whatever we see is our doing. Then item 4, that we must now go to the kind of meeting, this discussion they've been dodging since 1967. They've never allowed the owners of Nigeria to be the one to go to discuss whether they want to be in union or the terms of the union. But if we insist now, there's no other way they can proceed than to go and solve that problem. And then they will make an announcement of a time-bound nature to say, yes, we now have this, we now acknowledge this problem. We are now going to solve this problem. We'll suspend all the talk about the election. It is our collective action in demanding those things as written. It's only one paragraph. Is one proposition broken into 5 so that everybody can see exactly what needs to be done. Where are the people demanding it? Where are the people demanding it? Out of the 200 million people that are in danger. If they are not willing to demand it, then they're only saying they're happy with what they have. They're going to continue to be killed. They're going to continue to be impoverished. They're going to be continue to their hopelessness can only increase. But we know it can be better if we turn away from our ignorance and go and look at what is in black and white before us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Tony. There is a saying that says, if the people stand, the game is over. People are still lying low, and these politicians are feeding on their backs. So you better stand up so that the game will be over. Now, we are going to call on Sister Ndidi to give us action points. And she will take about 10 minutes to do that before we begin to wind down. Thank you. Sister Ndidi, take over.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay, well, I'm back again, and this time with the action points. And what we have, to read, is somebody saying something? Because I can hear something. Okay. Please
go
mute
ahead.
your mic.
Somebody mute yourself. Somebody is saying something important. Please mute yourself. Go ahead, Sister Ndidi.
Well, what is very clear from what's going on in Nigeria?
Hello, Ndidi. Are you still there?
Yeah, the network is.
Oh, gosh, I had not unmuted myself and I was talking. Let me start all over again. Okay, I'm back again, this time with the action points. And indigenous peoples, we can see that we face a serious existential threat, and it's coming at us from several fronts. There's the economic one, everybody getting poorer, people being forced to go abroad, Japan, all that. Infrastructural, network not working, no electricity, not bad roads, etc. Educational, we've got universities shutting down, we've got schools without equipment, etc. And healthcare wise, go to an optician, a dentist, or the hospital, and you can see that it's not 21st century equipment that you've got there. So these are all problems from this 1999 constitution. And right now, we're outrightly being killed because it's enabling the killing that we see in the Middle Belt that is also spreading southwards. So what we can do, and we must do, is to stop the enemy. And we know what the enemy is. It is the 1999 Constitution, a fraud and a forgery. And its owners are the Fulani Caliphate, and the willing tools are those from among us, from our own ethnic nations, who enforce that 1999 Constitution. So in these modern days, we still have warriors like we would have had, let's say, in the Middle Ages. But today, the warriors are the police and the armed forces, and they fight off criminals and the enemies of a country. But before going out on their operations, they must be briefed. Yeah, they must first have a briefing. And that is an information and intelligence session. So we are at war. They want to kill us, they want to take our land. So similarly, we too must have a briefing. We must have information in order to be able to go out there and fight off this enemy, and in order to push them back and conquer our criminal enemies. So we ourselves have to get properly briefed, and we've got to make sure we've got the information and then apply it. And we've got the enemy without, which is the caliphate, and the enemy within, which are the willing tools, who are our own people who enforce that 1999 constitution over our heads in return for riches for life. Yeah, you know, they've got all these big houses and big cars and all this thing. The riches for life in Nigeria, and they're also having a big, luxurious lifestyle abroad. These are their rewards. Plus, while they're here, you can see them, you know, making noise, 24/7 armed police protection. So the police that should be protecting the community, they've grabbed them all to themselves. So we know who they are. So in many ways, the enemy within is even more dangerous than any other enemy. And you can see the willing tool. That's those who enforce that 1999 constitution by swearing an oath of office. I can hear something in the background. Can you mute your mics? Some people are interested in this town hall. So can you mute your mics for those who are interested? Thank you. So in many ways, the enemy within is more dangerous than any other. And we can see the willing tool as a kind of a kidnapper. He's kidnapped us, and he's kidnapped our ancestral land for the Fulani and the Fulani's conquest agenda. So, you know, if you try to convince a victim who's been kidnapped that their kidnapper is their rescuer, you know, some people have managed to do that, then that victim would not try to escape. They might even fight to help protect that kidnapper from taking any accountability. So we'll find some people, because these willing tools, as I said, are those who enforce the 1999 constitution by swearing an oath of office. So they're governors, deputy governors, senators, House of Reps members, ministers, cabinet ministers, judges, special advisors. Some people may be saying, oh, that person over there is going to do some good to me, for me, you know, things like that, because they are actually the victim, but they don't realize that this is a willing tool who's now pretending to be your rescuer, you know, by saying that, you know, he's the good leader who's going to come. But we need to be sharp and no longer dull because of all the things that are happening. And we have to look at the evidence. And we do know that that 1999 constitution is a forgery and it's got to be taken down. So as I said, there are different angles in this war and this fight that's been thrust upon us. And that means we must be sober and we must be courageous. So those are the action points. Some of the action points are you've got to be sober, you've got to be courageous, you've got to do research and reading, you've got to apply the knowledge because you're in war, you're a warrior. And luckily where we are now is nearing victory. We are actually nearing the end of this long journey to freedom. We are at combined stage 14 and 15 out of 16. And that's because NINAS has been working for the past 23 years plus on our behalf. So this constitutional renegotiation, it involves us using our sovereignty and our self-determination. And self-determination is a people's right. And so it's not for one individual. We're not doing it for one man and his family. We're doing it for our ethnic nation, and we're doing it for all the ethnic nations of the Middle Belt and South. So the time left for us to complete our journey depends on us. We've got to get that clear, that we are in charge of how long we remain in this unitary Nigeria of death and disaster. It is us. It's not the Fulani and it's not the politicians. It is us, we the people. So the longer we stay is because we're not doing what we ought to do. So it depends on how soon we can come forward to claim our right to have change, our right to get the needed constitutional renegotiation done. So our action from now onwards is to amplify the NAS strategy. We know how it's done. We're human beings. We do the research. We saw the way for whichever candidates people were supporting. People going, I want this person, I want that woman, I want this man. So we know what to do. We amplify the message. We use social media. Those who can do weird and wonderful things on the internet, SEO things. I'm not internet savvy really, but you know, if you can do SEO maximization to amplify, you've done mass communication, you use it because you're doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your family, your children, you're doing it for your ethnic nation. So we're doing it for ourselves. So you use the social media. If you're one of those people who get interviewed on radio, on TV, you mention NAS and or the NAS strategy, really. You mention the NAS strategy. You make comments on newspapers. You go to Nairaland forum, you use Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all these social media. NAS has some hashtags. So you have to now go to the WhatsApp group so you can see what the NAS hashtags are. Or if you follow me on Twitter, Ndidi Uwechwe, I've always got the hashtags on every tweet that I have. Copy those hashtags and begin to use them. So things like that, social media. As I said, you join the WhatsApp group. It's called The Way. The link is there in the chat group. Then you go to the NAS YouTube channel. It's got loads of videos, over 200. You watch them, you learn from them, make notes, that's what I do, and then you share them on your social media platforms, WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever it might be. It's really about share. We've also got Clubhouse. Clubhouse, you can do town halls then. It's really good because it uses less data. So we've got Clubhouses. We've got Oduduwa NAS radio on Clubhouse. We've got Niger Delta radio on Clubhouse. We've got Freedom Talk radio, and we've got there's another one. Yes, okay, those are the, okay, and we've got Restore Nations. Sorry?
Daughters of Truth.
Okay, yes, but on Clubhouse, we've got Restore Nations where we have the, we tend to have like the Aladima Igbo Nation talks. Then the Daughters of Truth are there every Saturday on Facebook and on YouTube. So we've got these Clubhouses. And what else do we have? Yes, and what you can also do, because remember, you're not doing it for me. You're not doing it for, you know, the spokesman of NAS. You're doing it for yourself, for your future. You're doing it for your children. You're doing it for your ethnic nation. So you also can organize Zoom. You can also use the chat feature of Telegram or of WhatsApp and get a small group together. You can use Clubhouse. And if you're doing Zoom, you can always contact the NAS Secretariat to see if somebody there can come in if you need that assistance as well. So essentially, we have to be creative and we have to get the work done. As the spokesman said, the world is waiting to hear us say that we want our freedom, that we don't want to be guided by a forgery that is killing us and making our lives a misery. They're probably laughing at us actually, because it doesn't make sense at all. And so, you know, so we do that. And as I said, we are nearing the end of the journey. So if I've forgotten something, then any of the mods can add anything to the action plan. But with that, I personally yield my mic. Thank you.
It's okay. Thank you so much, Sister Ndidi, for that action point you have laid down now. And let us remind ourselves that Nigeria, we don't need to tell you this, that Nigeria is turned upside down. And we have to, you know, return, not Nigeria, but our sovereignties, our identities. We have to restore our identities, like we are Igbos, we are Yorubas, we are not Nigerian, because if you carry that passport, in fact, you are fake. You have forged your identity. And another thing that is very, very important we should, you know, look into is that power belongs to the people and not to the politicians. What we have in Nigeria is the government of the rogue politicians, by the rogue politicians, and for the rogue politicians, not for the people. And people keep crying. So the action we shall be looking out in a few days will be like rallies. And NINA Secretariat, or the outreach, NINA's outreach, we bring out what will be written on the placards. We are not going to organize you into that. You know how to organize, because we are in a teamwork. So we control ourselves. We don't need to go and give them ourselves to mesmerize. So we have to do it in a very, very disciplined and civil manner, so that it shall yield a desired result. So before I hand over to the last person, the rapporteur, who will give us what do you call it? Who will give us excuse me? Who will give us the rapporteur and the closing remarks?
Okay, Sister Moeke,
The
we have
propositions,
two
the
people.
propositions, the resolutions to be proposed from this meeting. That's what the rapporteurs is supposed to give us. What are we taking from this meeting?
Do we have time for a question or two questions, actually? Do we have time?
We can give about 3 minutes for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think, I don't know who is first, Chima or Donald, so make it snappy, 30 seconds, please.
Okay.
Thank you for being patient.
All right, this is Chima. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to make a comment. I've been hearing NINAS for quite some time now. What I don't understand is this, that NINAS is clamoring for the masses to escalate their point of view about Nigeria. They need the masses, the Nigerian populace, to actualize the domino. At the same time, they are alienating some of the vibrant groups that are actually doing what they are preaching to change Nigeria. I give you an example. There is a conference that is being organized in Helsinki, Finland. No matter how we feel about that, no matter how individually we feel about that, the organizers of that conference are talking about how to restructure Nigeria.
Please, can you make
Sorry, we're not here for other people. We're only here for the NINA's plan.
Yes.
So can the next person please ask their question? Thank you very much.
Please let it be a question on NINA, so that we
Hello,
don't
good
go
evening.
around, please. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. We can hear you quite well, please.
Good. My question is, how spread is NINA in terms of the geographical zones of Nigeria? Is it just southeastern?
No. So that's why it's called Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. We have in Nigeria over 350 ethnic nationalities.
Yes.
So all of them have come together, that those that want self-determination. Now we have two territories, the Alliance Territory for Self-Determination and the Sharia Territory. If you know that the 12 contiguous states in Upper North are now Sharia territory, and they have seceded from the Nigeria we thought we were building. So there's nothing left for the rest of the southern part, that's the middle belt, southwest, southeast, everything down where you don't have the Sharia yet. they are part of the NAS. So NAS is a movement, it's not an organization. And anyone that wants self-determination, no matter what you think your name is, you don't have an option but to key into the NAS proposition, because it is about 23 years of work, research, and all the collaboration that needed to be done has happened, both internationally and locally. So that is what it is. I'll allow the spokesperson to add one or two things so that you understand better. Thank you. Please go ahead, Mr. Tony. You want to say something? I can see you unmuted yourself. Hello, Mr. Tony.
Yeah, so the fellow that was the speaker before the last, the conference is talking about, and the alienation he's talking about, I happen to know because I tried to, take it up in the background. These criminals that are talking Biafra all over the place. So I'm supposed to go to Helsinki to meet with Simon Ekpa and all the hopeless, very, very hopeless people that were engaged for several years. They don't have a map to the Biafra they want. They have never gone to discuss with the people whose land fall into the territory called Biafra. They have no indication of the fact that it's the constitution that is the problem that holds them down in bondage. They have no indication of what they're going to do with the existing governance order and constitutional order. What is the meaning of restructuring if the groups are for Biafra restoration? They just throw in things. Dear Mr. Adiele, please, we have engaged them to the maximum extent of patience that could be extended to anybody, starting with Uwazurike, to Nnamdi Kanu's group, IPOB, to all the other Nekwachi and his people, Biafran government in exile, to this latest criminal called Simon Ekpa. We have no further energy to waste on any of them. Anybody who is still talking about Biafra, we are not prepared to have anything to do with them. They can go and restore their Biafra wherever it is. But we're going to continue what we're doing, and they are just going to mess up what we are doing if we attempt to, because since they do not want to listen to anything, they are ignorant and dishonest. And there's no time to waste on them anymore. We have extended every benefit of doubt that could be extended to any one of them. We are not interested. That's the answer.
Thank you. Thank you very
Anybody who
much.
doesn't embrace what our proposition, anybody who has no better proposition and who doesn't want to embrace the proposition on the table can go and do whatever he's doing.
So the beauty of the Nigerian Indigenous Alliance Nationalities for Self-Determination is that all the ethnic groups, all the ethnic nationalities, irrespective of their population and size, are at the same level, pushing together in an alliance. No one singular ethnic group or region will exercise authority over the rest. Not Fulani, not Biafra, no one. We move together in an alliance, discussing to ourselves, not fighting, not killing, not molesting, nothing like that. Discussing respectfully. It's a mutual alliance. Talking to one another, listening to ourselves. We are not shouting. You see how we are in this meeting. This is how NINA's meetings are, and this is how we have our meetings, even on the ground, because it's not just social media. We have meetings in these ethnic places, and this work has happened over 23 years. We were not shouting at ourselves. We were not killing ourselves. We have conversation, we have dialogue, and then we brought our grievances together and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we agreed. And it's very important because that's what United Nations requires. That's the international standard. Self-determination is the people's right. Any distinct ethnic group has the right for self-determination. However, if you follow the 2007 United Nations Declaration on Indigenous Peoples' Rights, you must work in collaboration with your neighbors and your partners before you can progress. Thank you very much. I'll allow Mbeke to come in.
Okay, thank you so much, Sister Ndidi and Mr. Tony, for the clarifications. And please, for avoidance of doubt, if you want to join or be part of NINAS, Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, please take off the old clothes of anything concerning Nigeria or Biafra before you come into the NINAS Ark. In the old, we had Noah's Ark. Today, God has provided us with NINA's Ark. Without wasting much time or further time, I call upon the NINA Secretary to give us the resolutions, the rapporteur, to give us the resolutions and closing marks before we wind up. Thank you. Dafe, take over.
Thank you, Adama. Good evening, all. Resolutions of the NINA's Town Hall with leaders of thought across the Nigerian society. At a virtual town hall meeting of NINA's outreach team with leaders of thought across various segments of the Nigerian society, held October 8, 2023, the following resolutions were proposed and adopted. 1, that it is now past debate that the imposed unitary constitution of Nigeria, 1999, is the instrument by which the sovereignty, assets, and rights of the constituent components of Nigeria are hijacked and confiscated. 2, that the unitary constitution creates the system that delivers everything we now lament, including corruption, impunity, insecurity, mass poverty, humongous cost of governance, serial electoral heat, including the inconclusive 2023 presidential election, bad governance, absence of rule of law, infrastructural decay, and everything else tormenting the peoples of Nigeria. 3, that the unitary constitution of Nigeria is the tap from which all our woes, failures, and miseries flow. That constitution is the chief enabler of the many malfeasances exhibited by people in power, system failure, and erosion of faith in the Nigerian Union, all leading to the state failure that Nigeria presently exemplifies. 4, that in the light of resolutions 1, 2, and 3 above, the task of taking back our country must of necessity be first about taking down the unitary constitution of Nigeria, and that any other kind of redemptive effort that does not first deal with this fundamental question of basis of union and the union arrangement, that is, the constitution as written, is futile and most probably driven by lack of knowledge. 5, that it is self-evident that as long as the current unitary constitution of Nigeria remains in place, the postulation that a new Nigeria is possible is simply not logical, as no new Nigeria can be built on the imposed, fraudulent, unworkable unitary constitution of Nigeria, 1999. 6, that we must now turn off the tap instead of mopping in futility, as we have done across the last 24 years since 1999. 7, that guided by a cost-effect analysis of why Nigeria is where it is now, the most potent strategy by which those who are now face to face with the monstrosity of unitary Nigeria, including those who seek mandate recovery, can successfully gamble with and overcome the evil system entrenched by unitary Nigeria, is to now elevate our post-election demands to include an immediate transitioning for constitutional reconstruction, in addition to the question of electoral mandate, since the 1999 Constitution is the direct cost and enabler of the daylight electoral robbery executed by INEC and ratified by the judiciary September 6, 2023. 8, that success in this demand will not only oust the imposters from power, but it will also bring us to the transitioning union. It will also bring us to the transitioning for union reconfiguration that will deliver the actual changes we sought when we first plunged into the task of enthroning a better leadership in Nigeria by way of elections, or when we first plunged into uncharted self-determination campaigns, such as Biafra restoration, Udua Republic, and resource control. 9, that placing this demand for immediate constitutional reconstruction on the table by those injured on February 25, 2023, charade and the daylight robbery of September 6, 2023, completely changes the dynamics of the disputations around Nigeria's Board 2023 presidential election, since the ousting of the 1999 Constitution immediately upturns whatever manipulations INEC and the courts may have done to arrive at the dubious verdict of September 6, 2023. NINA's secretariat will be available to guide all who wish to join the urgent task of constitutional reconfiguration that begins with transitioning arrangements. Finally, the NINA's outreach team and my humble self would like to say a big thank you to the speakers, priests, pastors, religious leaders, and participants. Without your suggestions, discussions, and questions, this section would not have had the successful outcome it has. We apologize for any perceived delay and misapprehension. Thank you once again, and I yield the mic.
Thank you so much for that, reading out the resolutions. And before we go further and begin to wind up, I would ask for adoption of this resolution. If we all adopt this resolution, or few of us or any person, please unmute yourself and say, I adopt this resolution. Just for a second, unmute yourself and say, I adopt this resolution.
I adopt this resolution.
Please, my brothers and sisters, hold on. Let's not do it that way. Let's have you guys just raise your hand. Click that, hand raised on your icon. It will make it easier because it's going to be intertwining with each other. So let's do it that way. So just raise your hand up if you agree. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Normally, somebody will move the motion for adoption and somebody would then second it. That's the way motions are adopted.
Okay.
What has been read is a draft, it's a draft, the draft of the resolution. Somebody will propose to adopt it. Another person will second it. So moderators, please call for the two.
Okay.
I don't know if you're hearing from me.
John
Yes. Talking.
Yes.
I move for the adoption of this resolution. Thank you.
Good. Seconder?
David Salami.
Good.
Hello?
Thank you so much. Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So the resolution has been adopted. And I would like us to think if it is good to call for this town hall, the series number 3 next Sunday. If we agree, then let somebody say, yes, I love that.
Yes,
and then
I David Salami. I David Salami.
Okay. 2 persons. Any seconder? Thank you so much. So next week we plan for another town hall series number 3, and within that time we shall also give out or plan how our people will go into the so-called action, maybe rally or something like that. So thank you so much for attending this town hall. We are very grateful to everybody for taking out your time this evening to be with us. Join the NINAS. We are still asking you that the door is still open. The ship is about to move. So tell others, tell your contacts, tell your family members, because it is about you. It is about your life. It is about your sovereignty. It is about your identity, so that our offsprings, our children will not suffer identity crisis, because Nigeria is happening to everybody. Let Nigeria not happen to you. As you come in, NINA's door is still open. Let us do it together. Let us stand up together so that our oppressors will be on their knees. We have all other plans, but let us do the ones we are asked to do. Call your friends. Join the platform, the web platform that is NINA's Pure platform. So join it through the link, invite link, or you can equally call us and then go through the NINA's website, www.ninasvoice.org, and also access the NINA's broadcast and the NINA's YouTube. And also attend, if you can, all the clubhouses we have during the week. Before we were having Aladima NINA's meetings on Mondays, but for now we have suspended it. Then Tuesdays we have a NINA's, Niger Delta NINA's, you can attend that one. Then Wednesdays we have Freedom Talk radios by 7 p.m. All these ones are 7 p.m. Then on Thursday it's free. Then Friday is Yoruba NINA's by 8 p.m. Nigerian time. And then on Saturday by 5:30 p.m. we have Daughters of Truth show, that is weekly show. And then in the evening at 7 p.m. that is Freedom Talk Radio on Clubhouse. So feel free to associate with all the peoples in the NINA's territory. We are one, and together we shall win. Thank you once again. And with this, I will ask every person to unmute and say good night to each and every one of us. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you for coming.
God bless both of us.
Good
Look
night.
forward to, look forward
Good
to
night.
next
Good
week.
night. Good
Good
night.
night. Good
Next
night.
Good night.
week, next Sunday, 1 week from today. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
God bless us.
God bless
Lord
us.
be with us.